Okay, so we've got our decal taped up where we want it. You want to use a long piece of tape along the top to keep the whole thing nice and stiff while you're applying it. Pull the tape off just a little bit before the edge when applicable. Don't really have that luxury up top on this one. And we're going to put this one on dry since it doesn't have that much actual surface area of vinyl. My rule of thumb is if none of the artwork is more than about 3/4 of an inch or an inch thick, you can do it without water. Pull the backing paper away from the decal slowly in case anything catches. You don't want to rip your design. You can actually see, like right here, it's not sticking to the transfer tape. Alright, with vinyl you usually want to do everything from the center out to the edges so you're not chasing wrinkles or creases or bubbles into the middle. Once they're in the middle, you're pretty much screwed. There's no coming back from that. A little bit at a time. You don't want to pull the bottom too tight or you'll create wrinkles that don't need to be there. You'll start to notice any problems more the closer you get to the end. And when you're doing a big decal like this, you might need to reposition your body a couple times so you can be comfortable. Because when you're uncomfortable, you'll usually start to make mistakes. You can see we're starting to run into some resistance up here. So I'm going to make a relief cut on the tail so that we're not fighting all that tension. And we can just take a piece of tape and get that out of the way for now until we're ready to work with it after the main part's done. We are starting to build up a significant amount of tension here because the flare, the fender flare, it's not totally flat. But once we get down here, we can make a relief cut and that tension will drop away and the leg will lay down no problem. We just gotta be careful till we get there. Take our time. It's getting real tight. Once we get there, we'll be fine. Okay, now that that's done, we can do our relief cut. There we go. Now all that tension on the leg is gone and it will lay down no problem. Squeegees are great, but sometimes your finger is the best tool because you can really feel what's going on underneath the vinyl. The more practice you get, the more you'll kind of understand which to use for which situation. There's a ton of tension here. We don't need any of this extra transfer tape, so we can make some more relief cuts to lay the legs or the feet down. Just get rid of that. Now the legs are their own independent pieces that we can work with. Take your time around the curves where the side skirt meets the fender. You can see as soon as you start taking regular decal vinyl around curves, the tension will build up pretty bad. You might need to cut a couple spots to let that tension dissipate. So just due to the nature of the material we're using to keep this job inexpensive and this 90-degree bend in the side skirt, we may need to cut the vinyl and have a seam, but you won't really be able to notice it when you're done. Do this. Get everything secured except for the spot you're gonna have to cut at the end. We're gonna take this transfer tape off. Slowly, while applying pressure so we don't pull the decal up. All right. Just try to cut this as straight as you can. Tack one side down and then line the other piece up on top of it. There we go. Can't even tell. If we were using much more expensive vinyl, which would be wrap vinyl, it would be able to handle that curve no problem and there wouldn't be a seam. But since it's black and it's at the bottom of the car, it's totally insignificant. Let's get this other leg down. There's not as much material after the bend in the side skirt on this leg, so we're not running into any of those same issues. Let's come back up to the tail that we taped up out of the way to save for last. Oh, this tape is very strong. There's some tension building up right here, so we're going to cut away that extra material. There we go. Tension's gone. And tail secured. Didn't do the ears. There we go. All right. Let's pull all this off. nice and slow. We're in the sun and we put this on dry, so it's pretty much fully cured already, but it's always good to have it to go slow and watch all the lines just in case anything comes up. Do a few inches at a time so that you can apply pressure closest to where the transfer tape is coming off of the art. Extra slow anywhere where you're crossing body panels. Sometimes that vinyl will want to lift or tear. I think I might have missed this spot. We'll deal with that in a second. I think because I was talking, I messed up right here. What we're gonna do is trim in between the panels. Very carefully lift this part up. It is in the sun, so if you pull too hard, it's gonna stretch. We don't want that, so just go slow. Now, you can tack it down. And there we go. So we need to trim in between the body panels. This is when sometimes you need to get a little acrobatic. In this situation, a lot of the metal behind the side skirt is exposed, and we want to make it look as complete as possible. So I'm going to hold the blade up against the bottom of the door and angle it away from the paint just a little bit so you don't dig in, and just slide the blade right across. Then when we tuck it in, it'll give that more seamless look by covering as much of the paint on the bottom as possible. We'll do the same thing here. Vinyl can get a little mushy in the sun, so little smudges like this can happen. No big deal. Lift it up with the blade, stick it down. All right, that's all trimmed. I'm not sure how to open the door on a Veloster, so I'm gonna let the customer do that. Oh, there we go, there's the handle. Okay, so to tuck this stuff in, you just roll your finger around the corner of the panel, just like that. That will ensure you don't stretch anything or trap any air bubbles. And you definitely want to do a good job on these parts, because this is where the vinyl is going to be most likely to lift. So just take your time. All right, there you go. When you're all done, go back over and look at everything closely, and if you see any air bubbles, just poke them very carefully with the tip of your razor, and you should be able to release the air. But otherwise, that's how you do it.